I used to think animals were the most dangerous thing in the wild. I was wrong. Very wrong. There's a moment that changes you. A moment where the line between safe and unsafe blurs so completely that you never see the world the same way again. For some people, that moment happens in a forest. For others, it's in their own home. And for a few unlucky souls, it happens in broad daylight, surrounded by people who should have helped but didn't. These are real stories. Real people. Real fear. And if you stick with me until the end, you'll understand why I sleep with my door locked, why I don't answer unknown knocks, and why I never, ever ignore that voice in my head that screams, run. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button. You're going to want to follow this channel after what you're about to hear. Trust me. Let me tell you about Ethan. Ethan was 22 when he agreed to go camping with his cousin Mark in Ravenwood Forest, northern Utah. Mark was 24, experienced, the kind of guy who could start a fire without matches and identify animal tracks like he was reading a book. Ethan wasn't outdoorsy, not really, but Mark had been planning this trip for months and kept saying it would be good for him. You spend too much time indoors, man, Mark told him over the phone. Fresh air, no cell service, just us and nature. Ethan agreed mostly because he didn't have a good reason to say no. His job was boring, his apartment was lonely, and the idea of a few days disconnected from everything sounded almost appealing. So he packed a bag, threw it in Mark's truck, and they drove 4 hours into the mountains. The first day was exactly what Mark promised. Quiet, peaceful. They set up camp near a clearing, built a fire, cracked open some beers. Mark told stories about previous camping trips, about the time he saw a black bear from 50 feet away, about the meteor shower he watched alone on a ridgeline. Bears don't scare me, Mark said, poking the fire with a stick. They're predictable. You make noise, they leave you alone. It's the mountain lions you gotta watch for. Silent. Smart. But even they don't want anything to do with us. Ethan nodded, feeling the warmth of the fire on his face, the cool air on his back. Everything felt safe. Normal. He even started to think Mark was right. Maybe he didn't need this. They ate hot dogs, drank more beer, and when the sun finally set, they crawled into their separate tents. Mark's was about 15 feet from Ethan's. Close enough to yell if something happened, far enough to have privacy. Ethan lay in his sleeping bag, staring up at the thin fabric of the tent ceiling. The sounds of the forest surrounded him. Crickets whined through the trees. Somewhere far away, an owl hooted. He closed his eyes. That's when he heard it. Humming. Soft at first, barely audible over the wind. A woman's voice, maybe, or a man's. It was hard to tell. The melody was slow, unfamiliar, almost lullaby-like. Ethan opened his eyes and sat up slightly, listening. The humming stopped. He waited. Nothing. Just the wind again. He lay back down, telling himself it was probably Mark messing with him. Or maybe someone else was camping nearby. People hummed. It wasn't weird. Then he heard footsteps. Not animal footsteps. Human footsteps. Slow, deliberate, crunching through the dry leaves and twigs that covered the forest floor. They moved in a wide circle around the campsite, never getting closer, never moving away. Just circling. Over and over. Ethan's heart started to pound. He unzipped his sleeping bag quietly and crawled to the edge of the tent, pressing his ear against the thin fabric. The footsteps continued. Steady. Patient. Mark, he called out, his voice cracking slightly. No response. Mark, is that you? Still nothing. The footsteps stopped. Ethan held his breath. Seconds passed. Maybe a full minute. Then, from somewhere just outside the ring of firelight, a stick snapped. Not under someone's foot. It sounded like someone had picked it up and broken it in half. Who's out there? Ethan shouted, louder this time. Silence. Then the footsteps again. Faster now. Moving away from the campsite, crashing through the underbrush. Ethan scrambled out of his tent and saw Mark doing the same, his flashlight already in hand. What the hell was that? Mark asked, sweeping his light across the trees. You didn't hear it before? Ethan said. Hear what? The humming. The footsteps. Someone was walking around the camp. Mark's face changed. The cocky confidence was gone. He pointed his flashlight into the darkness, moving in a slow circle. Nothing. No eyes reflecting back. No movement. Probably just an animal, Mark said, but his voice didn't sound convinced. Animals don't hum. Mark didn't respond. He kept his flashlight on, scanning the trees for another minute before finally lowering it. Let's just get some sleep. We'll leave first thing in the morning if you want. Ethan nodded, but he knew he wasn't going to sleep. He crawled back into his tent and zipped it shut, suddenly aware of how thin the fabric was, how easy it would be for someone to cut through it. He lay there, staring at the tent's ceiling, listening. An hour passed, maybe two. The fire outside had died down to embers, and the forest was quiet again. Too quiet. Ethan's eyes were heavy, his body exhausted. He was just starting to drift off when he felt it. Pressure against the side of his tent. Someone was leaning into it. Ethan froze. He could see the outline through the fabric. A shape, human-sized, pressing against the tent wall about 2 feet from his head. He didn't breathe, didn't move. The shape stayed there for what felt like an eternity, then slowly pulled back. Ethan's hand shot out and unzipped the tent as quietly as he could. He crawled out and looked around wildly. Mark's tent was zipped shut. The campfire was dead, and standing about 20 feet away, just beyond the edge of the clearing, was a figure. Tall, thin, motionless. Ethan couldn't see a face, couldn't see details, just the outline of a person standing perfectly still, watching him. Mark, Ethan screamed. The figure didn't move. Mark burst out of his tent, flashlight in hand, and the beam hit the figure full on. For a split second, Ethan saw a face. Pale, expressionless, eyes too wide. Then the figure turned and walked into the trees. Not running, walking, slow and deliberate. Get in my tent. Now, Mark said, his voice tight. They both scrambled into Mark's tent and zipped it shut. Mark pulled out a knife from his bag and held it in his lap. They didn't speak. They just sat there, backs pressed against each other, listening. The footsteps returned, circling the camp again. Closer this time, right outside the tent. Something dragged across the fabric. Fingers, maybe, or a stick. It moved slowly from one side to the other, then stopped at the zipper. Ethan bit down on his hand to keep from screaming. The zipper didn't move. The dragging sound continued around the tent, circling them completely, before finally stopping. They waited and waited. When the first light of dawn broke through the trees, they packed up in under 10 minutes and left without eating, without speaking. Ethan never went camping again. If you're already feeling that knot in your stomach, go ahead and hit the like button, because we're just getting started. Lucas didn't believe in the supernatural. He believed in logic, in things he could see and touch and explain. So when his father died suddenly and left him a cabin in the Pine Ridge Mountains of Montana, Lucas saw it as an opportunity. A place to snowboard, a place to clear his head, a place to grieve in private. The cabin was remote, 45 minutes from the nearest town, accessible only by a narrow dirt road that turned into a nightmare when it snowed. But Lucas didn't mind. He packed his truck, loaded up his dog Ash, and made the drive in late November. The cabin was exactly how he remembered it from childhood. Small, wooden, surrounded by dense forest. His father had spent weeks there every winter, always alone, always claiming he needed the solitude. Lucas never understood it before. Now he thought maybe he did. He spent the first day unpacking, chopping firewood, getting the old wood stove running. Ash explored the property, sniffing every tree, every rock. Everything felt peaceful, quiet. On the second morning, Lucas noticed something odd. Fresh footprints in the snow, leading from the tree line to the side of the cabin and then back again. They were human. Boot prints. Large, maybe size 12 or 13. Lucas frowned. His father had been dead for 3 weeks. No one should have been up here. He followed the prints to where they disappeared into the trees, but he didn't go far. Something about the forest felt wrong. Too quiet. No birds. No squirrels. Just silence. When he came back, Ash was standing at the edge of the clearing, staring into the trees. The dog's ears were flat, his tail low. He was growling, a deep, guttural sound Lucas had never heard from him before. "What is it, boy?" Lucas asked, walking over. Ash didn't move, didn't look at him, just kept staring at the trees. Lucas followed his gaze, but saw nothing, just pines and shadows. He tried to call Ash back to the cabin, but the dog refused to move. Lucas had to physically pick him up and carry him inside. That night, Lucas sat by the fire, flipping through an old photo album his father had left behind. Pictures of the cabin in different seasons. Pictures of his father standing in the snow, smiling. And then, tucked between 2 pages, a handwritten note. "Don't answer the living." Lucas stared at the note. It didn't make sense. His father had always been cryptic, always said strange things, but this felt different. Urgent. Like a warning. He was about to put the album away when he heard it. Footsteps on the roof. Heavy. Slow. moving from one end of the cabin to the other. Lucas looked up at the ceiling, his heart pounding. Ash started barking, backing away from the door. "Hello," Lucas called out. The footsteps stopped. He grabbed his flashlight and went outside, shining the beam up at the roof. Nothing. No ladder. No way someone could have gotten up there without one. He circled the entire cabin, checking every side. Nothing. When he went back inside, Ash was still barking, now focused on the front window. Lucas walked over and looked out. At first, he didn't see anything. Just trees and darkness. Then he saw it. A figure, perched in a tree about 30 feet from the cabin. Crouched on a thick branch, perfectly still. The flashlight beam hit it, and Lucas's stomach dropped. It was a person, or something that looked like a person. Pale, impossibly thin, with long arms wrapped around the branch. Its mouth was open, wide open, like it was screaming, but no sound was coming out. Lucas stumbled backward, dropping the flashlight. When he picked it up and shined it at the tree again, the figure was gone. He slammed the front door shut and locked it. Locked every window. Pulled the curtains closed. Ash was pacing now, whining, scratching at the floor. Then the knocking started. Soft at first. Tap, tap, tap. On the screen door. Lucas didn't move. The knocking continued. Over and over. The same rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. It went on for over an hour. Lucas sat on the floor with his back against the wall, holding Ash, staring at the door. He wanted to open it. The urge was overwhelming. Irrational. Like something was pulling at his brain, whispering that he needed to see who was out there. But then he remembered the note. Don't answer the living. He didn't open the door. The knocking stopped just before dawn. Lucas waited until the sun was fully up before he packed his truck, loaded Ash, and left. He never went back. He sold the cabin a month later without ever stepping foot inside it again. Some doors, you just don't open. Ryan thought he was being smart. Cautious. He'd read all the articles about meeting strangers for online sales, about picking public places, about bringing a friend. So when he saw a listing for a smartphone, barely used, half the retail price, he took every precaution. The seller's name was Trevor. His profile looked normal. A few mutual friends, some photos of hiking trips, a dog. Ryan messaged him, and Trevor responded quickly. They agreed to meet at a Starbucks in Riverside County, Arizona. 2 in the afternoon. Plenty of people around. Ryan brought his friend Elena for backup. They showed up 15 minutes early, parked near the entrance, and waited. Trevor messaged. Running late. Can we meet at the gas station down the street instead? My car broke down there. Ryan hesitated. Elena shrugged. It's still public. Still daytime. They drove to the gas station. Trevor messaged again. Actually, I'm at the pull-off just past it. My buddy's giving me a jump. You can see the car from the road. Ryan felt the first hint of unease. But he'd already driven this far. The pull-off was visible from the main road. It wasn't isolated. Not really. They pulled into the dirt lot. A car was parked there, engine off, hood down. No one inside. That's weird, Elena said. Ryan checked his phone. No new messages. He texted Trevor. We're here. No response. They sat in the car for 5 minutes. Then 10. The sun was bright. The road was busy, but something felt wrong. Ryan couldn't put his finger on it. It was just a feeling. A tightness in his chest. Let's go, Elena said. Ryan agreed. He put the car in reverse and started to pull out when a man appeared from behind Trevor's car. Tall, mid-30s, wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap. He walked toward them, waving. Ryan stopped the car. The man walked up to the driver's side window. Ryan rolled it down halfway. You Ryan? The man asked. Yeah. You Trevor. Friend of his. He asked me to handle the sale. You got cash. Ryan nodded slowly. Something about the man's voice was off. Too calm. Too casual. And his hands were in his pockets. Let me see the phone first, Ryan said. The man smiled. It's in the car. Come on. I'll show you. Bring it here. The smile faded. The man's hand moved slightly in his pocket. Elena grabbed Ryan's arm. We're leaving, she said loudly. Ryan didn't argue. He hit the gas and pulled back onto the road. In the rearview mirror, he saw the man standing there, watching them drive away. Not moving. Not running after them. Just watching. What the hell was that? Elena said, her voice shaking. Ryan's hands were trembling on the wheel. They drove for 10 minutes in silence, finally pulling into a diner to calm down. They sat in a booth, ordered coffee, and tried to laugh it off. Tried to convince themselves they were overreacting. Then Ryan saw him, sitting at the counter. Same man. Same baseball cap. Same sunglasses. Staring directly at them. Elena, Ryan whispered. She looked. Her face went pale. The man didn't move. Didn't smile. Just stared. Ryan stood up, threw a 20 on the table, and they left. They drove straight to Ryan's apartment, locked the doors, and stayed inside for the rest of the day. The next morning, Ryan got a notification on his phone. Tire pressure alert. He went outside and found his rear tire slashed. Not punctured. Slashed. A clean cut. He called the police. They took a report, told him they'd seen this kind of setup before. Sellers lure buyers to remote locations, rob them, sometimes worse. The tire slashing was a common tactic. Disable the car, follow them, finish the job later. Ryan's truck had been parked in a gated lot. Someone had followed them home. He moved 2 weeks later. If your gut is telling you something's wrong, listen to it. Drop a comment below if you've ever had an instinct that saved your life. I want to hear your stories. Noah was invited to a party. Nothing unusual about that. He was 25, worked in finance, had a decent social life. The invitation came from a woman named Lena who claimed they went to school together. He didn't remember her, but that wasn't surprising. His high school had over 2,000 students. The party was at a house in Westbridge Heights, New Jersey. A nice neighborhood. Big houses, manicured lawns. Lena had described it as a small reunion with a few classmates. Casual. Low-key. Noah showed up at 8 on a Saturday night. The house was massive, 3 stories, with a circular driveway and tall hedges lining the property. He parked on the street and walked up to the front door. It was unlocked. Inside, the house was dimly lit. No music. No laughter. Just the hum of air conditioning and the faint sound of voices from somewhere deeper in the house. Hello. Noah called out. A man appeared in the hallway. Mid-40s, wearing a suit. He smiled. You must be Noah. Come in. Everyone's in the living room. Noah followed him through the house. The living room was large, with expensive furniture and a fireplace that wasn't lit. About 15 people were scattered around the room. Some sitting, some standing. None of them talking. Noah looked around. Everyone was too old. These weren't his classmates. These were middle-aged people. Strangers. Where's Lena? Noah asked. The man in the suit gestured vaguely. She'll be down in a minute. Make yourself comfortable. Noah didn't feel comfortable. He felt like he'd walked into the wrong house. But he didn't want to be rude, so he stood near the doorway, checking his phone. No signal. That was odd. He'd had full bars outside. The people in the room were staring at him. Not talking to each other. Just staring. Silent. Is this a reunion? Noah asked, his voice sounding too loud in the quiet room. No one answered. A woman approached him. She was in her 60s, wearing a floral dress. She leaned in close, her breath smelling like mint and something else. Something sour. You should leave, she whispered. Noah blinked. What? Leave. Now. She turned and walked out of the room. Noah's heart started to race. He looked around. Everyone was still staring. No one was smiling. No one was moving. He pulled out his phone again. Still no signal. He walked back toward the front door, trying to look casual, but his hands were shaking. The man in the suit stepped in front of him. Leaving so soon? I think I have the wrong house, Noah said. I don't think you do. Noah pushed past him and yanked open the front door. He practically ran to his car, fumbling with his keys, and drove away without looking back. The next day, he tried to find Lena online. Her profile was gone. He tried to search for the address. It came up as a rental property, vacant for the last 6 months. He called the number Lena had given him. Disconnected. Noah never found out who those people were or why he was invited. He just knew he'd come very close to something terrible. He never accepted invitations from strangers again. Daniel was 9 years old when it happened. Old enough to remember every detail. Young enough to be helpless. His parents got a call late at night. His grandmother had fallen. They needed to get to the hospital immediately. His mom was frantic, grabbing her purse, her keys. His dad was already out the door, starting the car. Daniel, stay here, his mom said. Lock the door. We'll be back in a few hours. He nodded. He was scared, but he didn't want to say anything. His parents were already so worried. They left. He locked the door like they told him. He went upstairs to his room and got into bed, pulling the covers up to his chin. 10 minutes later, he heard the front door open. Daniel sat up. His parents were back already? That was fast. He heard footsteps downstairs. Slow. Heavy. Moving through the living room. Mom, he called out. No answer. Dad. The footsteps stopped. Then started again, heading toward the stairs. Daniel got out of bed and walked to his bedroom door, opening it slightly. He could see the top of the staircase. The lights were off downstairs, but he could see a shape moving up the stairs. A man. Tall. Broad shoulders. Not his father. Daniel's heart stopped. He slammed the door shut and locked it, backing away until he hit his bed. He grabbed his phone, but his hands were shaking so badly he could barely dial. The footsteps reached the top of the stairs. They stopped outside his door. Daniel heard breathing. Heavy, ragged breathing. "Go back to bed," a deep voice said from the other side of the door. Daniel didn't move. "Go back to bed," the voice repeated, slower this time. Daniel climbed into his bed and pulled the covers over his head. He stayed there, frozen, for what felt like hours. He didn't hear footsteps again. Didn't hear the door open. Just silence. When his parents came home an hour later, he ran downstairs crying. They called the police. Officers searched the house. Every room, every closet, every hiding place. Nothing. No sign of forced entry. No evidence anyone had been inside. But Daniel knew. Someone had been in his house. Someone had stood outside his door. Someone had told him to go back to bed. He slept in his parents' room for the next 2 years. Hannah had been a caregiver for 6 months when she got the overnight shift. Mrs. Collins, an 80-year-old woman with dementia, needed someone to stay with her while her daughter was out of town. Simple enough. Keep her safe, make sure she didn't wander, call if there was an emergency. Hannah showed up at 7 in the evening. The daughter, Rachel, was friendly, professional. She showed Hannah around the house, explained Mrs. Collins's routine, and left a list of emergency numbers on the fridge. "She gets confused at night," Rachel warned. "Sometimes she thinks she's still in her childhood home. Just redirect her gently. She's harmless." Rachel left. Hannah made herself comfortable on the couch, flipping through TV channels while Mrs. Collins slept upstairs. Around midnight, Hannah heard footsteps. Mrs. Collins appeared at the top of the stairs, looking disoriented. "Can I help you find something?" Hannah asked, standing up. Mrs. Collins stared at her. "Who are you?" "I'm Hannah, your caregiver. Rachel asked me to stay with you tonight." Mrs. Collins's face twisted. "Get out of my house." Hannah stayed calm. This was normal. Dementia patients often didn't recognize caregivers. "It's okay," Hannah said. "Let's get you back to bed." Mrs. Collins walked down the stairs, her eyes locked on Hannah. "I said get out. I'm just here to help." Mrs. Collins lunged at her. Hannah stumbled backward, shocked. The old woman was stronger than she looked, her hands clawing at Hannah's face. Hannah managed to push her away, but Mrs. Collins grabbed a lamp from the side table and swung it. Hannah ran into the kitchen, her heart pounding. She locked the door behind her and pulled out her phone, dialing Rachel's number. The door started to shake. Mrs. Collins was slamming against it, over and over. Hannah could hear her screaming, incoherent words, rage in her voice. "Rachel, you need to come back," Hannah said into the phone, her voice shaking. "Your mother she gets like this sometimes," Rachel said calmly. "Just wait it out. She'll tire herself out. She attacked me. She's confused. She doesn't know what she's doing." The slamming stopped. Hannah held her breath, listening. Silence. Then she heard the drawer in the kitchen open. The silverware drawer. Hannah looked through the small window in the door. Mrs. Collins was standing there, holding a knife. Staring at the door. "Rachel, she has a knife. Stay calm. Don't go near her. I'll call my brother." The line went dead. Hannah looked around the kitchen. There was a door leading to the basement. She opened it, slipped inside, and locked it behind her. She sat on the top step, shaking, listening to the footsteps above her. Mrs. Collins walked back and forth across the kitchen floor. Over and over. For hours. When Rachel's brother finally arrived at 3 in the morning, he found Mrs. Collins asleep in her chair, the knife still in her lap. Hannah quit the next day. She never did overnight care again. If you're still watching, go ahead and subscribe. You're the real ones. And I've got one more story that'll make you rethink who you trust. Maya needed a roommate. Rent in Tacoma, Washington was expensive, and her one-bedroom apartment wasn't cutting it anymore. She posted an ad online. Within a week, she got a response from Evan, a guy in his late 20s who worked in tech. He seemed normal, clean, quiet. He passed the background check. Evan moved in on a Saturday. The first week was fine. He kept to himself, worked from home, didn't make noise. Maya barely saw him. Then things started disappearing. Small things at first. A t-shirt, a pair of socks. Maya assumed she'd misplaced them. Then her favorite hoodie went missing. She asked Evan if he'd seen it. "Nope," he said, not looking up from his laptop. The next day, she saw it hanging in his room. Her hoodie, the one with her college logo on it. The one she'd been looking for. She knocked on his door. "Evan, that's my hoodie." He looked at her like she was crazy. "No, it's not. I've had this for years. It literally has my name on the tag." He stared at her. Then he smiled. Not a friendly smile. A cold, unsettling smile. "Maybe you should keep your door closed," he said. Maya installed a lock on her bedroom door that night. Evan didn't like it. He started knocking at random hours. 2 in the morning. 4 in the morning. Just standing outside her door, knocking. When she yelled at him to stop, he'd walk away without saying anything. She started sleeping with a chair wedged under the doorknob. One night, a friend came to visit. He took one look at Evan and pulled Maya aside. "That's the guy who was outside my apartment last month," he whispered. "He was just standing there, staring at the windows. I called the cops." Maya felt her blood run cold. That night, she heard her bedroom door handle turn. The lock held, but the handle kept turning, jiggling. Someone was trying to get in. She called the police. They arrived within 10 minutes. Evan was arrested for trespassing and violating a restraining order from a previous incident Maya knew nothing about. She packed her things and left that same night. Stayed with friends. Didn't come back until Evan's belongings were gone and the locks were changed. She never lived with a stranger again. Caleb was 10 years old when a stranger picked him up from school. The man said his mom had sent him. He knew Caleb's name, knew his teacher's name, seemed to know everything. Caleb got in the car. The man didn't drive toward Caleb's house. He drove toward the edge of town, toward empty streets and old houses. Caleb started to feel afraid. "Where are we going?" Caleb asked. "Your mom asked me to take you somewhere safe." "Safe from what?" The man didn't answer. They pulled up to an old house with a chain-link fence. The man unlocked the front door and told Caleb to go inside. Caleb hesitated. "Go," the man said, his voice harder now. Caleb went inside. The man led him down a narrow staircase into a basement. It was dark, cold, and smelled like mold. There was a single mattress on the floor and a small window near the ceiling, too high to reach. "Wait here," the man said. "Your mom will come get you soon." He left. Caleb heard the door lock from the outside. Caleb sat on the mattress, his heart pounding. He pulled out his phone, his hands shaking so badly he could barely hold it. He dialed 911. "I need help," he whispered. "A man took me. I don't know where I am." The operator stayed on the line, asking questions, keeping him calm. Caleb answered as best as he could, describing the house, the streets he'd seen. He stayed on the phone, whispering, terrified the man would come back and hear him. 20 minutes later, he heard sirens. Footsteps upstairs. Shouting. The basement door burst open. Police officers rushed down, flashlights in hand. "Are you Caleb?" He nodded, tears streaming down his face. They carried him out. The man was in handcuffs in the front yard, screaming, claiming he was doing the right thing, claiming he was protecting Caleb from something. He was arrested, convicted, sentenced to 15 years. Caleb never found out what the man's plan was. He just knew he'd almost become another statistic. Another missing child. Another face on a poster. He was one of the lucky ones. Forest cabins. Homes. Parties. Strangers. Roommates. People you trust. People you don't. The danger followed one pattern. It didn't look like danger. It looked normal. Friendly. Familiar. Ethan thought the woods were safe. Lucas thought his father's cabin was a place to heal. Ryan thought meeting in public was enough. Noah thought he was going to a reunion. Daniel thought his parents had come home. Hannah thought dementia made people harmless. Maya thought background checks were enough. Caleb thought adults could be trusted. They were all wrong. And the scariest part? They did everything right. They were careful. They were cautious. They followed the rules. And it still almost wasn't enough. Because the real monsters don't hide in the dark. They walk in broad daylight. They smile. They use your name. They know how to make you feel safe right up until the moment you're not. Animals follow instinct. Humans follow intention. And intention is so much worse. So before you go, do me a favor. Lock your doors. Check your windows. Trust your gut. And if something feels wrong, don't second-guess yourself. Don't rationalize it. Don't be polite. Just run. If this video made you feel something, hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me which story got to you the most. And subscribe, because I've got more stories like this. Real ones. The kind that remind you why fear exists in the first place. Stay safe out there. And remember, the most dangerous thing in the world isn't what's hiding in the shadows. It's what's standing right in front of you, smiling.